I've chosen these three pages here. It's a heist comic, and what's happening here is these three girls are robbing something, or not robbing, but they're doing a heist job at what you can see is in France at the Louvre. I think it's the Louvre Museum. All right, so let's get started. While these are the pages that I am working on, it's important to know, because this is in the middle of a story. I'm not doing the whole story, but this is in the middle of the story. I'm going to have to understand what's going on with at least the panel that comes before this. And so here's the page before, and we can see that one of the three girls that are performing the heist are on the roof of the Louvre. They're on the part of the Louvre that has a glass window to the top of it. And I'm kind of lucky here because there's a real life location here. I can go into and research that myself. So here's the Louvre, right? This arch down here is part of the scene, and I'm looking at the rooftops, and here on this side right here is the only place where they have kind of this glass roof. So this is where the story kind of starts to take place, and she's taking out a rocket launcher, and there she is right here. Here, let me get my write some notes here. But she's facing this way, and here it is. Here's the rocket being launched to the helicopter, and then we go to the next shot, and it blows up. And you have to ask yourself, why are we so far away? It's wouldn't you want to see the explosion up close? Why are we at this extreme wide shot? Well, it's because it's an establishing shot that links where let me go back to the notes again. So the action, I'm sure the rocket launched here, it blew up, and the next panel we see her teammate. And what's quite beautiful about this is you can tell she's looking up, right, at what's happening, and it just so happens to be literally both, literally graphically, she's looking at the explosion. So there's this great line of sight that happens here. Also, as I noticed going in, this glass pyramid is a pretty important place here, and also this building that now this is the last panel I'm going to be dealing with, but just as it is important to understand what's happening before your selected shots, it's important to understand what's happening after. And so what happens after is, she breaks through this window, which is why, if we go back here, we see a window, right? So there's this window, which is here, and all that is established right here, right? We've got the pyramid, and we've got the window, and we've got a great establishing shot. Great. All right. And an explosion happens, which catches her eye, and then it looks like she kind of looks over at these guys who are talking, and they're not being aggressive. You can tell by their stance, but they are probably saying, and I don't read French, but they're probably saying something like, hey, this is a restricted area, something's going on here. She's ignoring. So what I'm thinking of happening here is maybe as she's putting on her gear, maybe one of their hands comes into the shot or something like that. Maybe something like that could happen, like, hey, we're going to stop you. But, she obviously kind of leaves. All right, and go to the next shot. They're obviously being aware of her, and she's coming towards us. And while this is a frontal shot, the angle is still, it's interesting. Now we're starting to do what's very typical in action, and to keep audiences from getting confusing, is we are being consistent with screen direction. Now, that doesn't always happen in comics, because comics can break the rules, with panels and whatnot. But one of the reasons why I chose Bastian's comics is because he's very cinematic. Even though he doesn't have to follow the rules of cinematic language in comics, he usually does. And so I thought that would be, kind of a good thing. So let's look what let's look at what's happening here. We're coming towards the camera, right? And now we're going away from the camera. But even though we're coming towards and away from the camera, if we divide these frames in half, we'll see that she is always on the left side of the shot, going to the right, right? And that starts really right here. She's going from left to right. She's always looking right. She is looking right. And so that kind of consistency is really important. If Bastian were to place his sort of camera's eye on the other side, then she would be facing left instead of right, and that causes confusion. All right. Another thing, let's move on. So once again, we're always going camera left to right. These guys are still even just looking right. We've got a bit of, revving action here. And check this out too. I really like how, Bastian doesn't have the benefit of motion. And so rather than having the motorcycle kind of flat, it's doing a little pop wheelie, right? Which also explains how she's going to get onto that glass pyramid. But we're always looking for ways to show action, even with these static images. I think this motion parallax is one of the requirements here, as well as keyframe animation. And there's this motorcycle here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to cut out and scale and have it move. This is the path that it's going to, and I'm pretty sure this is the window that's going to that is the same window as down here. We're still going from left to right action, and this is kind of cool. Is this intentional? Maybe I'm just BSing you, but why is the character on the right side of the screen for the first time? I think that's great, because she just got through all these police officers and whatnot, and so for Bastian, the most important frame is I've left the chaos behind me, and I'm at my goal. Now, I know that the next panel after this is not her immediately breaking through the window, right? We're going to cut away from her mid-air, and then there's some action here. That's her teammate. That's the third of the three heist girls, and looks like they have gotten her down, and they're kind of reveling in their success, and all is well. And then all of a sudden, boom, she breaks in. And so I think it's very clever that we have this motorcycle here flying into the air, but there's still a great amount of distance before she actually makes it into the window. And so as I'm thinking about how I'm going to turn this into an animatic, every shot that you have that involves action, you're going to have to decide, and in this case, does the motorcycle start in frame, and does the action start here, 1, and then end here, 2? I don't think so. I don't think that would be, I don't think that would serve the next shot, because we need that kind of calmness before that. So what I'm thinking is going to happen is I'll start maybe here, 1, and end it no farther than this halfway point, 2, and then cut away, and that will be the end. So thinking about action that happens in the panel, let's do that. Let's go back to the beginning. And we've got this rocket launcher about hitting. I think I would have this. Now I'm not doing this panel, but I still need to plan it. 1 is the rocket is still in the launcher, and then 2, it's about to hit the helicopter. And we're going to cut to a match on action, and I think 1 will be the helicopter is still seen, but just for a split moment before 2, boom, right? And then there's this thing that's called an L cut. An L cut is when the sound from one shot lingers and travels on to the next. And so I think I want to do an L cut here so that the sound effects travels here. And this is a reaction shot. And so what I want is maybe this pose here to be a reactionary shot, which means pose 1 could be, let's see, do it in another color. Pose 1 could be maybe because these police officers are in this proximity, maybe she was already kind of looking. This is my idea of a kind of a profile, like she's looking. So that would be 1. She's looking over at those guys, and it's gonna be pretty quick. So an explosion, we see a helicopter for a split moment, not even a full second. It explodes, and as soon as it explodes, that's I'm going to cut to her looking over, but that pose is going to be immediately followed by a reaction shot. Once again, probably 4 frames into the shot. 4 to 6 frames, right? And then over here, she would have been kind of looking up. So this would be 1, and then as she's looking at these guys, maybe that's the pose of her face is like a 2. But then I'm thinking, you know what? We've got these 2 dialogues here, and maybe I can't read French, but excuse me, but what are you doing here? Yeah, this place is restricted, something like that, right? Why don't we use another audio, but instead of an L cut, let's use a J cut. So she's looking up here, right? And then we hear some voiceover, or not voiceover, but dialogue. Let's see. So dialogue, right? And it's the dialogue. I'll write a J cut, right? J cut. It's the dialogue from this shot here from these 2 police officers that are happening here. The dialogue happens here, and then so I'll just kind of cut this in half, right? Call it a J cut. And then she looks over to him, and he's finishing that as well. And it looks like these guys are mid-walking, so I'll make sure that they are walking towards her. Okay. Then maybe her hands, maybe a 3 can be the helmet, and the helmet will be a match. She'll be lifting the helmet up to put it on, and another match cut on action. So we've got a lot of match cut on action here. She's placing it on, and let's have a hand come in from these guys, and I think I'll start her here and then have her here. And maybe I think, because this is, I think all of these shots the camera's going to be on sticks, so no camera movement. But because we're about to start some action, I think we'll start with the camera still, and let's do a follow. So we'll have a tracking shot following her. Okay, and we're off to the next. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna cut her out, and even though it's gonna be really pixelated, I'll use scaling in After Effects to show that she's coming towards us. And so maybe this over here is a 2, because 1 could be that he was looking at her, right? And then his gun is up, so this gun can be like a 2, but maybe 1 is that the gun down, right? And I want her to get close enough so that maybe there's a I'm gonna try it. It may not work, but we'll do a invisible cut. And that's where she gets close enough to the camera that maybe it goes all black. You know, maybe not an invisible cut, but definitely, I mean, you know, we'll try something with this reverse cut. All right, so comes at the comes at the camera, away, then we cut away here. Now this we can tell by perspective, right? Oh, that's another thing. We need to add some perspective grids, because when you do animatics, right? Let's just, yeah, we can look at this one right here. You see these grids over here? Those are those may be tiles, but any opportunity where you can show grids to reveal perspective, you know, even if it's the grid naturally in a building to show that it's an upshot, you know, right? Throwing enough buildings in here to show perspective. That is the job of an animator doing an animatic. The client is the director of photography, you know, the guy that needs to frame the shot on set. And so these perspective lines help the DP to know where to place the camera. Anyways, I can tell that this is an upshot over here. Now, what this could be, because this is the destination, and because this is an upshot, there's a good chance that this is a POV shot. And so if it's a POV shot from a girl on a motorcycle, there's a good chance that maybe this could be have a handheld kind of camera feel to it, right? I think these two are both on sticks. Static, letting the camera, letting the action happen in the camera, but without moving the camera itself. But over here, maybe there's a bit of a handheld feel to it, so we know that, okay, that's her point of view looking at the her destination. All right, and I know I want to do a camera follow here. You know, maybe she comes from there, from behind, and we're tracking we're doing a camera follow, and the camera's tracking. And so I think I want to have a bit of camera tracking over here as well, a bit of a follow. She'll be coming from behind those, and that way there's a matching a match cut on camera action. I love this composition here. Well, really all the composition. This is an opportunity for you all to experience, you know, great cinematic language. these wide shots. Then we go to a medium shot, right? I love how the artist has clustered these soldiers in here, and we're so close in that there's no idea the number of troops there are, and that's kind of a nice way to show that the opposition is many. There's a lot of people. It's not that she's just passing a few people, but there's a lot of people that she's going by. And we cut in, we cut away. I mean, not we don't cut away. We cut. It's funny how we're cutting away to these guys, and we're cutting back in to an aspect of her shot. And this is, I think, where I'll maybe do some rough animation. Well, I'll also have to do that for all of these shots here, where the character is in one pose and then moves to another pose. So we'll have to draw those extra poses. All right, and then we can use keyframe animation to scale and position this motorcycle so it appears it's, right, coming in, going away from us. Great implied direction. And you'll notice here, check out our aspect ratio. This is one of the problems that we're going to have to deal with later, and I'll show you later on in this demo. We have a restrictive aspect ratio. Comic books, man, I think they have it easy because they can constantly change their aspect ratio. Now, what happens if all you do is frame the shot like this? What happens? Obviously, we are going to miss out on a couple pieces of important information. One is the where the pyramid is, and basically the origin of the motorcycle. And we're also going to miss out on the destination, and so that's the challenge. I'm not going to figure that out at this moment right here, because my goal is to just figure out what's going on and just a basic cinematic language. So maybe this shot might work. We'll see later. All right, so that is about it for my planning stage, and now I'm going to move on to the next stage, which is actually prepping these shots in Photoshop. As I mentioned before, there is a requirement for at least one shot to be a motion parallax, and if it were me, I would probably do this shot right here, or maybe the panel below. But this could be in the foreground, and this could be another sort of layer, and we could have the camera maybe dolly in, and as it's dollying in, if this is the destination, we'll actually have it dolly in, not towards this center, but actually we'll have it dolly in to this window very subtly. Motion parallax, maybe I don't think it would be as effective, but I could probably do motion parallax here as well. It's kind of difficult. There's no clouds in the sky to make the sky any kind of benefit to that. But if maybe you could put some clouds in there, right? Just because there's no clouds in there, I don't know. The clouds, probably a bad idea, right? Because with the clouds not here, there's a great figure ground. There's a great positive negative aspect. So yeah, I'm gonna say no to those clouds.